video, we are down in everyone's favorite part of the boat, the head. Don't worry, I'm not actually using the toilet, just sitting on it for purposes of making this video. The project we're going to be working on is converting our heads to flush using fresh water rather than the salt water that they come plumbed with from the factory. There's a couple reasons we're doing this. The biggest reason is smell. When the microorganisms in the salt water get in the hoses and die, they create a big sulfur smell, which does not smell all that pleasant. And then the other reason, the big reason, is we're looking to eliminate the deposits that can build up in the hoses. When the human waste interacts with salt water, it builds up these deposits. It can help restrict the flow of water, which can cause more problems for us later, so we're looking to avoid that. So in order to do this project, we have a couple things we need to do. We're going to be tapping into our pressurized freshwater system. We're going to be installing a solenoid, which will act as a check valve so that none of the black water from the heads can get into our freshwater system and foul that up. We're going to have to do a little bit of replumbing, running some hoses, and then also doing a little bit of electrical wiring as well. So we'll go ahead and get everything set up and we'll get this project started. So we're looking at the holding tank compartment for our port aft head. This is inside the shower, and normally we have a panel in front of this that has the shower head on it. But back here we have easy access into the freshwater pressurized system. So I'm going to go ahead and mount the solenoid in here, and that'll be the first step for kind of beginning this process. This is the solenoid we're going to use to help manage any backflow of black water into our pressurized freshwater system. I certainly don't want that. This is a Jabsco part. We have a French manufactured head on the boat, but this will go ahead and work for our purposes. What I've gone ahead and done is, you can see up here, these are actually what they're called weld mount studs, and they use a two-part epoxy, and I can just pretty much glue those right onto the fiberglass and don't have to worry about screwing into anything, so it makes it nice and easy. So I've got this set up, and the next step is we'll go ahead and run the wire that we need to go ahead and tie into the old pump. So we'll use the same 12-volt wiring, and that'll power this solenoid. This is the water pump that is currently supplying the salt water into the head. What we're going to do with this one is we're going to take the electrical 12 volts that are running to it, which activate it when the switch is pressed in the head. We're going to be swapping out this wiring and running it all the way up to the solenoid, which we're going to mount up in the head itself. So I will drop the camera down. You can kind of see we've actually already run the wire, and kind of see back under the bilge. It's running way back there. Right up there, those are all the hoses that are running up to the bottom side of the head, so we're going to have to swap those around and play with that a little bit later. So got the new wires spliced in, so the next step is we're going to go up into the head and attach the connectors that we need to be able to connect into the solenoid. I've attached the female connectors onto the other end of this wire. This will be what attaches onto the solenoid. The connectors themselves did not actually have any heat shrink on them, so I added just a little bit of tubing on there and covered up both the wire and the connection. So the next step is we're going to go ahead and attach this onto the solenoid itself. The wires are now attached to the solenoid, and one of the nice things about this solenoid is that it does not actually matter which side the red and the black wires are attached to, so the polarity doesn't matter, it'll still work. Makes it very easy, so you can't wire this incorrectly. So this is the part that's not so fun. As you can see, we've got that white hose coming up to the gray connector. That is the salt water hose that's coming in to supply the water into the head. So I'm going to take that one off and swap that out for the new 1/2-inch hose that we're going to be using from the solenoid. Unfortunately, it's very difficult to get this toilet out in an easy accessible position, especially without undoing lots of hoses, and I don't want to run the risk of dumping sewage everywhere, so we're just going to try to do this in tight quarters. This is the old intake line that ran from the saltwater pump up to the head. For now, I've taken it off, and I've got a 5/8-inch hose barb that you can see is clamped on, and a 3/4-inch cap that's on the end. That'll help keep it nice and tight and closed. That way I can keep it on the boat as a backup emergency, just in case I ever need to swap everything back. This is the new hose that's going to be coming off of the solenoid and attaching to the back of the head. This is a 3/4-inch hose, whereas the
last hose we had was 5/8. This one's a little bit bigger, which means I need to swap out for this part. This part we've got the 3/4 inch barb and the same 3/4 inch threads that will actually be able to screw on to the back of the head. So this is just like the part that was on there from the factory, but it'll change it to the size barb that we need for this sort of hose. So we'll go ahead and get that attached. Got the new attachment on, hose clamps on there to help keep it nice and tight. Now we'll run it up under the bilge, up under the head, get this thing screwed on. With the 3/4 inch hose now attached to the back of the head, we're now going to go ahead and do the same thing up here and attach it onto the solenoid. The 3/4 inch hose running from the solenoid down to the head is now hooked up. As you can see, that's the one that goes in the middle. The barb over there on the right hand side is the inlet from the pressurized freshwater system, so we are going to go ahead and get that hooked up next. These red and blue lines are our pressurized freshwater system, and as you can probably guess, as I mentioned I think earlier, the red is for our hot water and blue down there at the bottom is for our cold. So for this, I don't want to be using our hot water, so I'm going to be tying here into the blue line. And in order to do this, I've got a couple cool parts. This is the whale T 1/2 inch adapter. It's pretty easy. Those pipes down there will just snap in. And then in order to swap to the type of hose we're using for everything else, we've got a nice easy adapter for the 1/2 inch. So it's got a quick connect that'll snap in there on this side, and then just a 1/2 inch barb over here on the other side that will be used to connect to the hose that will run up to the solenoid. I almost forgot to mention that right now our water system is pressurized, so I'm going to go ahead and turn off our freshwater pump and run as much water out of the system as I can. There will probably still be a little bit of residual water left, so I'll put a few towels down there to try to catch up everything I can. But I'm going to go ahead and hook up the rest of the system, the 1/2 inch hose up to the barb on the solenoid and then into the quick connect, so I can get that ready to plug in as soon as I'm ready and cut that blue pipe. That way hopefully we'll minimize the amount of water that we spill into the rest of the boat. So now I've got the 1/2 inch line here in this T-head quick connect. So that's all ready to go. And the 1/2 inch line is also now up here on the hose barb on the solenoid. So we will make a quick cut of that blue line, attach that quick connect as fast as we can, and hopefully we don't spill too much water. So we managed to get the new quick connect in. This one right there. Without spilling too much water, but I was glad we had that towel down there just to catch what did spill. So now I'm going to go ahead and repower our freshwater pump, get some pressure back in the system, and we'll check for any leaks. Well, you might be able to hear a little rain in the background. I guess the weather guys decided I wasn't having enough fun dealing with all the water and in the bilges and everything. They had to send a little extra my way. But I did get the freshwater pump back on, tested the pressurized system, checked to make sure there were no leaks, both there and up here at the solenoid. Of course, the lighting is now terrible because we're getting close to dark, but no leaks, fortunately. So now what we're going to go ahead and do is we are going to get power to the solenoid, and we will test to see if the water comes all the way through to the head just fine. Time for the moment of truth. Got power hooked up to the solenoid, so it's ready to go. Now I just need to hit the electric switch here for the head. We'll see if it starts filling up with water, and then we'll also try flushing it out. That's a good sign. Filling with water. And there we go. Looks good. I'll do this a few more times. Check under the head, back of the solenoid, just check for any leaks. I think we're about to call this mission success.